A new exhibit right now at the Overture Center. More than 50 artists are exploring their questions and interpretations of the current state of democracy.
The spring gallery just opened up and will be here to stay through the end of June.
Let's check in with Phoebe Murray, joining us now live from the Playhouse Gallery at the Overture. Good morning to you, Phoebe.
Hey, good morning, Tim and Aaron. And I'm very excited because I get to introduce you to one of those artists this morning. We have Sophia Belker joining us. Sophia, good morning.
Good morning.
And tell me, please, about Interconnected.
Interconnected, actually, I created this painting to emphasize the importance of African Americans' cultural, scientific, and educational influences on American society and how important that is for us to remember that.
And exploring democracy, what was kind of your process? How did you land on this painting?
Just seeing the changes and exactly seeing how everything moved around in the democratic process of our country as of the past and the current it is right now. And making sure that people understood that anything that we do is a network. It's interconnected as far as how we process our democratic practices, uplifting and overcoming and empowering ourselves when it comes to any difficult time, trying to make change and betterment for our country.
And as people are making their way through this beautiful gallery, what kind of things would you like them to keep in mind?
I would like them to know that, excuse me, I would like them to know that any change, any type of affected part of their lives comes through an expressed portion of every artist here. And every artist has a way of letting you know that through their own personal experiences and through their own personal stories, that this is their version of democracy and expressing exactly how democracy impacts them.
And you're an artist here in Madison. Tell me what it's like, what the process was like being asked to be a part of it and then seeing this come to fruition. What's that been like?
Very exciting. I'm very proud to be part of the Overture Gallery's exhibit, Democracy exhibit, and it was just an awesome opportunity, and this is going to be a continued awesome opportunity for me.
I love it. Sophia, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excited to see more work coming from you. And if you guys at home would like to come and check it out, it is open now, free for the public viewing, and it's going to be here through June 4th. But for now, live in Madison, Phoebe Murray, NBC 15 News.